Good evening. At Hyde Park tonight, we discuss the future of Sri Lanka cricket and politics. What's on in 2020? Be it cricket or politics, we have an eminent personality, an eminent legal personality joining us tonight in our studios at Hyde Park, a keen follower of the game of cricket, a columnist and also a media personality, Mr. Gomin Dayasri.
Thank you.
Good evening and a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be back here at your studios.
Great to have you here, and I think we have a multitude of matters to discuss tonight pertaining to cricket and politics as we look at 2020 ahead. But I'd like to start off with cricket. I think your involvement in cricket began somewhere before the 1996 World Cup, supporting our cricketers. But if I skip to the latest incident in West Indies, you travelled to the West Indies, and if we talk about the West Indies series, we remember the ball tampering matter. Chandimal, and then when the team took to the field 2 hours late in protest of the ICC's decision. Let's talk about your involvement in this.
Well, let me start at a point which is convenient and where I can get on track fast. Let's look at it this way. I was always interested in cricket. I was associated with cricket in Sri Lanka from before the World Cup, as you very correctly said, because at that time they couldn't afford lawyers. They came to me, I remember when the first thing they said is, we can't afford to pay lawyers. So can you take on? I said, gladly, because that was my passion, that's my devotion. So I was very happy to be associated with cricket, and cricket never paid me a cent, and I was very happy doing it, because if you do something with sincerity and with your all your necessary ingredients put into the cup, well, you do a better job. So I was very happy and I did it that way. But later on, after the World Cup, we got a lot of money and a lot of lawyers came into business, and I faded off. But still they used to come to me occasionally, discuss something, and then they go off. But I never charge fees, that's the rule. As far as West Indies is concerned, I was sick of Sri Lankan politics. I was, as you correctly said, I was a media personality. I did a lot of columns. I did write a column for Daily Mirror. But I decided, at least my wife told, you enjoy cricket, so why don't you go to the West Indies and follow cricket and write a column? And I did that. I wrote a column called Beyond the Boundaries, because I didn't want to rewrite the scoreboard. I thought I'll take the gossip column, find out what's happening, and that was fun. I did it previously when the Australians came, and 2 Australian newspapers in fact carried me, so I thought I'm okay, and I managed it. So when I went there, before I went in Dibari, I told the one member of the board, I think it's Mohan Silva, that I'm there. If there's any problem, you can contact me, but I'm available at any time if you need me.
Right. And
while this was going on, one day when I went for the match, that was at second test. I think that was at
West Indies.
Yes, West Indies second test. It was at St. Lucia Islands. And when I was there was this so-called allegation where we didn't take the field for a long time.
For 2 hours.
2 hours, that's right. And that arose because there was an accusation of ball tampering. Now, ball tampering is the same accusation I was able to get us out of the dustbin previously. So I knew something of it. So when Guru Singha walked up to the press box and inquired for me, I was there and I told Guru, now Guru has been hounded by journalists, I told Guru, let's walk out, because you mustn't answer too much on this question or expose yourself too much. Took him out and asked him the story, and he very gallantly told me the whole thing as best as he could. And so I told him, look Guru, I'm living in a lovely place all for myself, and you can come and with Haturu Singh and we can discuss it that evening. He said he had no time because I know he was very busy. And I liked the stand he took because he was with the boys, he was with the cricketers. The cricketers had taken the stand that Chandimal was not to be blamed, and I'll tell you that story.
Match referee, Srinath had said that he found Chandimal's statement quite unconvincing, especially because Chandimal had said that he remembers putting something in his mouth but couldn't remember what it was. are you saying that Chandimal should have said something else in defense, or?
No, Chandimal should have told the whole story. He has only said half of it. He would have been questioned. I can quite understand. He would have been asked, do you know what you put in the mouth? And he would have said, I don't know what I put at that time in the mouth. And that's quite an acceptable answer. If he told the whole story, I'll tell you that. Now this I learnt firstly from the Sri Lankan journalists who were there, the other four. They had been sent by the board, so I can vouch, and they were very fine young men. And they told me that Chandimal had been medically advised due to certain weaknesses in his body that he should throw many things into his mouth and keep it in the pocket. So he had nuts, he had almonds, he had probably sweets, he may have had gum, he had several things in the mouth, and he should throw them from time to time. And he should have told that part of it. Now, I know
Why would he have not mentioned all that?
Yes, I'll tell you. I'm an Anandian, and I know Anandians are not the best people to speak English and know knowledge. No, he has certainly not told the whole thing. That I know for sure, because I asked Ashley De Silva later on, did Chandimal say what was in his pocket? He said no. Then we are in trouble. Chandimal, but the problem was, I think, well, let me get back to track. Well, I was retained that night, evening 9:35, I checked the time in the night. Faiza Mustafa, the minister, telephoned and said, sir, can you appear for the cricketers? I said, yes, gladly, because I said I consider it it's my duty, national duty, to appear for the cricket, because I done it previously. But I told him there's condition, I don't charge fees. He was not too happy, but he didn't disagree. So next day, so when I went in the morning, I found Guru Singh coming out, emerging from the bus. I took my coat, it was blue-black, and I was waiting to appear, and I thought we might need a coat because I wasn't quite sure what the proper dress for and dress etiquette. So I wanted to be as perfect as possible and not get thrown out of the box for being underdressed. So there I was, and then I found Guru Singh having a long chat on the phone. Then he came and told me, oh, I was talking to a President's Council. There's one little thing I should say. I was not allowed to speak to any of the cricketers by a white man who comes from the British ICC disciplinary committee.
Why?
He thought, he told me, I'll throw you out of the box. Now these Britishers, you have to talk to them in good English. You have to tell them where they get off. I told him, you can't throw me out. I can come in with a ticket any time. And that's exactly what the West Indians did. They gave me a whole lot of complimentary tickets to go to any stand. So I couldn't speak to Chandimal, but I spoke to Guru Singh. Guru Singh said, oh, well, I've been talking to a President's Council. Now he was very proud and the President's Council has told him that he can continue with the case and that I'm not necessary. So I took my coat and walked back to the press box. Now I had stopped the journalists from talking to me on cricket at all, because I was privy to a lot of insider information. I was, as a professional man, I had to keep it under lock and key, so I didn't allow them to open their lips on ask me questions.
Mr. Dayasri, are you saying that if you had stood for this appeal in the case, that the outcome would have been different?
Well, I don't rate myself high, but I can say this much. I wouldn't have taken the stand that was taken by the young man who appeared, who was also the person who was speaking. I think he missed two very valuable points. You see, the thing is, there was no ball tampering. There's only attempted ball tampering or throwing spit on the ball. Those are the two possible for this reason. You see, the reason is the ball tampering incident had taken place maybe around let's get precise, between lunch interval and tea interval. So it may have been about 2:22 or something like that. And thereafter, so many times the ball was in the hands of the umpires. It was every time any player got injured, and they got injured very frequently during that match, because there were a lot of pacemen operating at the two ends. Then there was a lot of people who were asking for drinks, water. Every time the water interval or water van comes along or water is brought to any player, the ball has to go to the umpire's hand. And also remember, tea interval, the umpires had the ball, and they had the ball. Now this is very, very important. They had the ball from 5:30 in the evening till next morning 10 till the match began, and they brought it to our notice just about 12 minutes before the start of play on the next day.
And that's when our players boycotted the field.
They boycotted. That is a mistake. They shouldn't have boycotted. What they should have done is, if they were guided, they should have said, look, By that time I was thrown out. What they should have done is that I was thrown out the following day. But what they should have said is they should have protested and taken to the field. They couldn't stay in the room for 2 hours in the dressing room because a whole lot of spectators were just waiting aimlessly, waiting for the players to come out. They should have taken the field, but the thing is, you see, in cricket or anything, when you take a defence, you can't blow hot and cold. Chandaka Jayasundara would have had that problem dealing with the minister and with the cricket board because they were blowing hot and cold. They hadn't taken a stand. Because I think they took the correct stand, and that is where I could have helped them, because to remember the laws, whatever bylaws on cricket, sports law, is all secondary to natural justice. You have simple rules like no man can be a judge in his own cause, not only must justice be done, it must seem to be done. Now the first objection I would have taken would have been to disqualify Srinath. Srinath is disqualified because match referee, because he would have been informed by the team that the time that they knew about this incident was just 10 or 15 minutes before, because they would have had to bring it immediately to the notice of the Lanka cricket team. So he would have been a necessary witness. That would have meant we could have. The second thing I would have done is I would have given an affidavit of what Chandimal did in Sinhala, because I know Chandimal can't face cross-examination in Sinhala, in English, because he has learned.
So couldn't he have been helped by whoever appearing on behalf of him, if that was the case?
The thing is, they should have got the story out, because you see, you need a lawyer, and a lawyer was there by your side. I was there, I could have assisted him, but I was told I'm not necessary. I was told to get lost. I went back to the press box, and there I was. And then when I came back to Sri Lanka, once again I get a call from Faisal Mustafa. Again he says, can you appear again? So I said, by now, of course I must tell you, I was warned by several people in Halsdorf and my juniors, some of them, that Faisal was searching for me to get himself cleansed up and to retain me and to be cautious. So I was very cautious this time. I said, yes, but I want 3 conditions. I said, I'll bring my juniors, but those juniors and I will not charge any fees. So I think, end of the day, I don't know whether this is a story where money changed hands or exchange. I don't hope so. I hope not. I don't think so. But anyway, I must say we have a very, very poor minister in charge.
Mr. Dayasri, I think you mentioned about how differently the trial of Dinesh Chandimal could have been taken. I would like to look at the issue in a broader sense without taking an individual as it is. But how do you think we need to strengthen the cricket administration, especially we've seen cricket elections being postponed, and there were also certain cases where some of our prominent legendary cricketers were called as to help in contract basis, and they refused, citing a lack of trust in the administration. When we put all this together, what have you got to say?
I got to say this, madam. I think wherever there is money, flies walking, and that's exactly that has happened to cricket, and not only cricket, even look at any social organization, whether it is religious, charitable, where there's money, you get the unhealthy elements. You get the unhealthy elements, to me, are first the politicians and then followed by the servicemen. I mean, they get in there because they use their power, they use their strength, they use their influence and get into positions, and then the whole thing is mishandled, I would say, for the simple reason. Let's take cricket. Why do good cricketers like Siddharth Vettimuni and them not participate? Why is it that people, good entrepreneurial businessmen like Mr. Vijay Tilaka, Mr. Hema Kamarasuriya, not want to get dabbled in cricket? Because it's simply this. It is that wherever politicians are, they bring so much disgrace. Honourable people walk out. They don't want to join. That's the very reason why I suppose many cricketers of fame don't want to get involved with the administration. I think cricket should be restricted to the people, not necessarily cricketers, but those who are genuinely interested in the game, who have skills like entrepreneurial skills, because you need a lot of finance. Cricket is very much finance. There's negotiation skills like advertising contracts, like IC, you got to deal with the ICC, you got to deal with the white man, you got to deal with the black man, and you got a whole lot of people to deal with. So you get to have experienced people, but among them You must be very careful unless of course somebody is a prominent cricketer or somebody who's a prominent serviceman, ex-cricketer. Otherwise, I think you must be very careful. In every sport I find various politicians, various servicemen, including policemen, are holding rank and position, and what happens, no game has been succeeded in sports except in athletics, Susantika Jayasinghe and a few others. And also in the Asian context we have done reasonably well in athletics and in a few sports, but in cricket, that's the game. That's the name of the game that we have brought a lot of fame, even today we have beaten the South Africans in Sri Lanka. The spinners have done it. So it's a game that we must look forward to in winning and getting a better name, improving our image. Remember, Sri Lanka is probably the only country in the Asian context where the same politicians are surfacing. They are showing face. When did they first come into politics? Can you remember? 1970, mind you. Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mahinda Rajapaksa came into politics in 1970. Now we are 48 years. Nearly 3 generations have passed by, 2 generations for sure, and they are still there. Why are there other people not coming? Is it
right? Since you took to speak about politics, the flip side of 2020, when the next presidential election is due, I think it's time to move on to talk about politics, as we promised at the beginning of the discussion. This government came into power promising a good governance, a wave of new practices, a framework, but and also stringent development, which is regularized. Are you saying that the present government has failed to do so?
Failed miserably, I would say. I'm quite bold to say failed miserably on TV or anywhere, because what is the government's track record? Where they could have scored is where they could have. If you see, talking about corruption is good, but the thing is, you must prove those charges. Now, I don't think anyone will believe charges are not established, but now they did one in Parliament. That way, what did Mahinda Rajapaksa do? He ran away. He should have faced that occasion. He should have set out his position squarely and fairly. He should have laid his cards open. But instead of that, when he runs away, it looks to me guilty. But still there's no proof. But if government and their lawyers can get the act together and bring charges, well, then we might have a different equation in the results. But still, I don't think Ranil Wickremesinghe is the candidate. You have to get a new candidate, and the UNP can, because UNP has poor people, they can bring another candidate who is formidable.
Talking about corruption again, Mr. Dayasri, now this government is constantly engaging in setting up framework, reviewing existing legislation, and also bringing up RTI, introducing right to information. How do you think this has supported the country's media framework and political landscape?
Media framework is very important. I really must give you this credit. Today my only confidence I have is in the media, because media is brave, media is bold. We lawyers, I mean, we are another set of people who can stand up our own 2 feet. We have our own economic standards. We can establish and live without any government support. But what have the lawyers done? They have been disgraceful except for a few. Others have been absolutely negative. While the media, look at you all come out with this kind of program, or anybody you allow them to talk. I mean, I remember very well, even in the UNP times of previously, under Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister, I could attack Ranil on the television, and I was very harsh, but that did no harm to him or me. So you see, we still are a fairly democracy that is certainly virulent. But thing is, my problem is, in and around Sri Lanka, many countries have cleansed themselves. Look at India. We got Modi. He's winning elections. He's winning even the local elections. We got another man in Philippines. He's cleaning up. He's talking tough to even Trump. Then we have a man in Indonesia. He's doing it very well. He's a furniture dealer. But he is now cleaning up because no one can point, because he is a rich man. Even his wife and child don't ever go in a public vehicle. So they got a lot of credibility.
I think we'd like to talk a little on that after this short break, but especially in Pakistan too, with the new wave of political change coming in, I'd like to talk to you more on that.
Canada, there's Trudeau.
In politics, a new wave of political candidates coming forth to contest in various elections across the world, and you identify this as a positive trend. In Sri Lanka too, how do you see the change that is necessary?
Well, I think you mentioned two names, Imran Khan and Trudeau from the West. I think it's happening all over. You can see it happening in France, you can have it in Sweden, you can have it in Czechoslovakia. New faces are coming to the forefront. That's good because it means that you can wipe out a regime, do away with things like corruption. Otherwise, it's a continuous deal. Now, for example, right now, there's a number of accusations against Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe over the bond scam. There are accusations against Mahinda Rajapaksa on the Hambantota harbour. Now, if both are not in politics, if you have new names, then you can wipe out, close the chapter and begin afresh. But that is not happening because I think basically you have to blame the people also. Now, if I get back to cricket, in the West Indies, I didn't see a single stadium or any kind of stand named after anybody but a cricketer. It was Weeks Worrell Walcott stand, or even if it was a media stand where I was, it was under a media man. So there were, in Sri Lanka, you have Premadasas, Mahinda Rajapaksas, have they ever contributed a cent towards the maintenance of the or erection of those stadiums? It's the public funds.
This statement brings us to the recent controversy regarding the Galle Stadium. Regarding its legality and the fact that its structure threatens the UNESCO World Heritage Site in Galle.
Quite right. And what is happening there is, I think Mahinda Rajapaksa was responsible for having at a stage when the international community wanted us to move away from the Galle Stadium, I think he restored it and he regained the position because it's a beautiful ground, and you see we get most of the cricket tourism comes to Galle. So I think we earn money. Now cricket or whatever it is, we must earn economically, we must be strong. Now if you look at the record, it's not when I say new faces, you don't have to have pretty faces, you don't have good lookers like young Trudeau, but it is some new names. But why is it that in West Indies, I ask the question, how is it that you all are able to keep names of politicians out? Because in Barbados, amazing, a woman candidate won all the seats in Parliament. 39 seats are there in Parliament, all 39 went to one party. How is it that such an eminent person doesn't get his or her Barbados is very well known for cricketers, most of them come from Barbados. And I said, how is it that? She said, it is public opinion. So you've got to blame the public. Public will sit all this, they will listen to all these stories, but can they remember what happened before 77 or after 77? They can't. They will vote for the same people they know. So that we have to give the public also a good whipping if you want to get them thinking, and young people especially. Why are the young not coming to vote? What I say is young people today Sri Lanka is a wealth of young people. They are dynamic, they are thinking afresh, they want to live a life of their own. They think of times ahead, but not the old.
But what promise do we have that new faces could change the system, lay a framework, yes, and regulate what's happening here? Because it seems that everyone falls into the same system.
Yes, I think you've got a good question there, and my answer is, look at the den of 16 people who moved parties. The old timers are back in the forefront. They have enjoyed life under both parties. They are now coming for the next session. The old people we have lost faith in the old generation. We did our work. Some of us did, because we have done. I mean, I give a great tribute to Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa for eliminating terrorism. We couldn't have lived or spoken like this in the midst of terrorism. But now we have done away with terrorism. That's why I say they stand up for Sri Lanka. But can you say the same of the resolution that was brought in Geneva? I mean, we should be thankful both to Mr. Sirisena and Mr. Trump more than anyone else for killing it, because Trump is no believer of human rights. And that is why I think...
now, since we're there, do you think Sri Lanka should in fact withdraw from the co-sponsorship of this resolution? The United States is no longer a party to the global body. And
they gave very good reasons why they're standing out.
correct. They call the body a cesspool of bias.
So we have a good chance, but then I don't know whether that will clear our name. It will only show that we are inconsistent. Because if you remember, when the 13th Amendment was sought, very many people said we shouldn't proceed with it, but the last government introduced it, and what was bi-party arrangement between India and Sri Lanka became a multi-party when it was taken up when we sponsored it in the UN. So now once again we have sponsored war crimes and made it a global issue. So I don't know whether we can run away from those things, but we can if you have new people. So we have to have new names, new faces.
You stress upon the fact that we need new faces, the right education to govern this country. Isn't that necessary?
This is the game that we have been going on and on and on. So we got to stop. So I hope that some new people, new names will emerge, not the same old names. Now I know, look at the people who have been in politics in recent times. I remember very well, Mrs. Bandaranaike was the last Prime Minister who found people of her own party guilty, and she sacked them from the party, traced them from Parliament. Now, they were corrupt practices, but still I think it's because society is really on the decline. At least we had people like Ms. Bandaranaike who did chase off all those who were found guilty of corruption under her. It's not the party that matters. What matters is the quality of people. And I got the feeling that with the same people around who have been hanging around for 48 years, give them another 6 years, 54, economy is right down. After that, will we ever able to surface? That's my genuine fear. This country has a great future. We have a wealth of people, young, old, but there must be new people, new faces. I'm not saying Gotabe or anybody is new. They are old faces, but still new to the business of politics.
If we talk about the constitutional amendments that are necessary, I think we spoke about the amendments that have already been brought, but we are also ahead of certain changes that have been discussed, amendments that have been discussed. What do you think is the right way forward?
Well, we are certainly going to have the 20th Amendment because the 19th has been such a dismal failure. I'm the petitioner in that case, and I remember very well, I argued for maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours, the point that you must have elections, people must have the right to exercise their right to vote, to exercise the franchise, to vote. And if now the situation is so bad, a government can collapse due to budget failing but unless you have a 2/3 majority, which is never possible under the PR system, you cannot have a government. Even if it loses a vote of no confidence, you will have to regroup, and a new government has to emerge from the people in Parliament, not outsiders. Now remember, Mrs. Bandaranaike and them, when they lost the Lake House Bill by 2 votes, they didn't ask for a recount. They said, no, we'll go to the country and face it, and they lost. And a new government came in. Now, the same thing should happen now. But today, the whole problem is the 19th Amendment is a disaster, because you can't, even if the government is at its worst, you have to live with this government for another, with the same parliamentarians for another 4.5 years, and that's 5 years because it takes 6 months to have elections. So they are assured of 5-year term. Now that's a very dangerous thing, because you are giving them a term of office till their very rights to exercise a vote in Parliament remains.
So you're of the view that the 19th Amendment
will be changed someday, somewhere, because we have to have the 20th coming round. But 20th, I would say, should take off some of the dangerous elements in the 13th Amendment also. Now, for example, 13th Amendment, I remember I argued that case, the land case. There were 2 judgments by Shirani Bandaranaike and Sarath Silva, which gave the land to the periphery. I also have been foolishly saying all over that 13th Amendment gave the land to the periphery, but it didn't. Fortunately, the Indians slipped up. A major slip by the Indians saved Sri Lanka, because today the land is in the hands of the President. So the Presidency is a very important weapon that we must safeguard. That chapter is unchanged, and even the schedule dealing with land has safeguarded that, because the Indians didn't read the whole Constitution. They didn't know the Constitution. I learnt it even only when I saw this Till then, even I was absolutely stupid. I thought land went to the periphery. Land is in the hands of the president.
Before we wrap up, there's something I'd like to clarify with you quickly. Your view, as you talk about the president, the executive, should we retain the powers?
Yes, we must, because we won the war because of that. We keep the land because of that.
And why do we need an executive in the future?
In the future we need, because we can see what is happening today. Weak governments, no government is strong enough to be in control of affairs. It's very unlikely. We shouldn't have governments like that came in 1970 or 19 subsequently, because if you give too much power, then they become absolutely undemocratic. So I think we must have a majority government, but there must be a majority. If there is no majority as at present, it's the president that holds the country together. And we won the war because of the presidency. And we must win. We might have terrorism again. We might have various other disasters, natural or unnatural. But still, we need the presidency.
And that executive from within parliament or separate, continue to be a separate?
No, it should be a people's president. But let us hope that we will someday get a president who is mindful of the voters, a president who can take a firm stand and stand up for Sri Lanka. And I think the most important thing, madam, is that we must get the reconciliation process. We must get the Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslims, all communities together under one flag, and we must stand up for Sri Lanka, whether it's cricket or whether it is politics.
One Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Mr. Gomin Dayasri, an eminent legal personality, as I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion. Of course, a keen follower of the game of cricket, a columnist and also a media personality joining us tonight at Hyde Park. Thank you, sir, for your time here.
Thank you very much for inviting me, madam.
We'll see you again next Thursday at the same time at Hyde Park. Until then, take care. Good night.